Hi, this is our SAT vocabulary list number 23. Please take Cornell notes, write down the word, part of speech, and the definition, as well as any examples I say or that you think of as I'm presenting the list that will help you to remember the list. The first word is acrimonious, and acrimonious is a describing word. It's an adjective. It describes something that is full of bitterness. It describes something that is both sharp and kind of bitter, and that could be in terms of language, the way something is said, or the tone of voice somebody uses, or even in the behavior or the nature of something or someone. So something that is acrimonious is kind of characterized by this sharpness, this bitterness. Definitely not a positive word. So if you're looking at this person, if he's providing an answer, he's yelling something, it's an acrimonious answer that he's kind of yelling at you. There can be an acrimonious dispute about something where maybe two people are yelling at each other and their tone of voice is very bitter, very sharp, very accusatory. Debates, often political debates, can be very acrimonious, almost hard to watch because the two people debating can be kind of rude to one another and cruel, and it becomes kind of uncomfortable. The second word is ardent, and this should remind you just by sound of another word in our previous list, ardor. And ardor means great warmth of feeling. And so if you remember, these two words are very similar. Ardent and ardor are almost like synonyms in terms of their meanings being so similar. And ardent describes a burning, burning with passion, burning with this intense or having some kind of very intense feeling or passion towards something or someone. So whenever you describe someone who has or is expressive of or characterized by a really intense emotion, intense feeling or passion, you might describe them or how they're feeling as ardent. So people, two lovers might make an ardent vow to stay together forever, and they might have ardent love. So you can use it in a couple of different ways. Often fans have this ardent love for their team, so much so that they would dress in these ridiculous costumes to support their favorite sports team. Number 3 is conspire. This is a verb, and it means to plot, to plan. And usually it's when a group agrees to do something together. Often it's kind of secretive, and a lot of times it has negative connotations. So you'll hear about, criminals conspiring to rob a bank. But it can also mean any group that gets together and conspires to work together towards something. So they might agree to do something to achieve a shared goal. For example, a team, when they get in the huddle, they're conspiring. They're trying to figure out what can they do to try to make the next play a success. Number 4 is encumber, which is also a verb, and it means to impede with obstacles. And an obstacle is anything that gets in your way. So impede, you're kind of stopped or blocked by these obstacles. So to encumber is to block, impede, stop the forward progress of someone or something. Think about the word obstructive, right? To get in the way. And so often, a lot of times at school, students ask teachers, why don't we have more field trips? I wish we went on more field trips. But there's so much red tape. There's so much that has to get done when a teacher plans a field trip. They have to send a letter home to the parents. They have to organize with wherever they're taking their kids. They have to arrange for transportation. They have to collect money. It's a huge process, and all of those details can encumber a teacher and make them almost not want to deal with it because it's so much to plan. Here's a more literal example of something that is in the road, encumbering the progress of any vehicle who might try to go down this road. 5 is idiosyncrasy, and this is a noun. It's a mental quality or a habit that is kind of peculiar or individual to a person. So if you know someone who does something that's a little odd and it's just kind of them, that's something that they do, then it's an idiosyncrasy. So any habit or mannerism usually tends to be kind of unusual that's peculiar to someone. So for example, as a teacher, I do lots of things that might be considered kind of peculiar, right? I drink a ton of water. So I always have my big Starbucks water cup and I'm drinking water, and kids have always kind of teased me about my idiosyncrasy of drinking so much water all throughout the day, or how I can't stand the sound of pen clicking. So when students are just kind of zoning out or they're concentrating, a lot of students just kind of have their own idiosyncrasy and they just click their pens repetitively, which definitely kind of irks me. And that's an idiosyncrasy. It's something that's fairly specific to me. Other teachers probably wouldn't bother them. Some people are just incredibly focused on keeping things clean, and that habit of cleaning to the extreme might be also be considered an idiosyncrasy. The sixth word is insight. This is a noun, and it is to have intellectual discernment. And what that means is basically to be able to understand the true nature of something through your own intelligence, but also through almost an intuition. So if you have insight into a situation, maybe you understand it better than other people around you. So let's say one of your friends, their parents are going through a divorce. If your parents have already been through a divorce, you might have insight into how that person is feeling because you've been through it. You have more information. You're able to better understand where they're coming from. So insight is just that ability to really understand the true nature of something. And just recently, right, we had this great loss, right? Mandela died, but he was known for having such amazing insights to people. And this is just one of his many quotes that Nelson Mandela is remembered for. But a very insightful, which is the adjective form of the word, a very insightful man. 7 is luminous. And since my classes are part of the luminescent core, I would hope that this is a word you guys will remember quite easily. Something that's luminous is, it's a describing word, it's an adjective, is something that is giving off light, it's radiating light, it's almost glowing, it's bright. You think about it like a really luminous candle, or maybe a really luminous classroom with lots of natural light flooding into it. But think luminous, luminescent, light. All of those things should kind of be related in your mind. So here's a building, beautiful, beautiful lights lit up, very, very luminous. In the dark, this would stand out for sure. The next word is obstinacy, and it's a noun, and it means it's basically stubborn adherence to an opinion, and then the SAT definition says arising from conceit or the desire to have one's own way. So basically, obstinacy is the quality of being stubborn, right? You want your own way, and so you are stubborn. You dig in your heels and you're not flexible, you don't give in. That is this quality. Now, a lot of people will probably hear the adjective form of the word, which describes someone who displays obstinacy, is a person who is described as obstinate. So here's an example of a young child who definitely looks like she might display obstinacy. You know, she doesn't look like she's gonna give way to what other people want. She's gonna dig her heels in to get what she wants. 9 is pseudonym, and a pseudonym is a fictional name, and it's often associated with writing. The definition from the SAT says especially when assumed by a writer. So what that means is oftentimes writers will write a book and publish it, but the author, the name of the author on the book isn't actually their name. And in the past, in the distant past, when women, their role was not seen as, they were not seen as scholars, or it wasn't really their, quote, place to be writing, a lot of female writers would write under a male pseudonym. They would use a male name to get their pieces published. Dr. Seuss actually is the pseudonym for the writer Theodore Geisel. Geisel, I think is how you say his name. And then also another really popular one is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which tons of kids read, is by Mark Twain. But Mark Twain is actually the pen name or the pseudonym for Samuel Clemens. So interesting that some authors, for whatever reason, choose not to use their actual names when publishing. Number 10 is rescind. It's a verb, and it means to make void, and void is empty. So you can make void by kind of enacting authority or a superior authority, but this definition isn't as helpful as just thinking about rescind as revoking, to repeal, to take back. Right? So if you give someone something and then you rescind it, you take it back. You revoke whatever it is you gave them. As a high school student and even as a mom of a young child, there's a lot of people have parties, they invite you to social gatherings. Well, if you got an invitation to a party and then you got in an argument with that person, they might rescind your invitation and just let you know they don't actually want you at their event, right? They're revoking, they're taking back, they're making it your invitation void, so it's worthless. 11 is somber, and I would just think of somber and sad. So somber describes anything that's kind of gloomy. A lot of times the atmosphere in a certain situation might be described as somber. So a funeral would be described as a somber event for the most part. People are very sad. It's kind of, it's a little depressing. People feel bad. It might be a little gloomy. And this old picture, it just looks very somber. Everybody just looks very kind of sad and depressed or unemotional. 12 is tangible, and something that is described as tangible is perceptible by touch, which means you can touch it. So if it's tangible, it can be touched. Something that is intangible cannot be touched. So it's not something you grab and hold or feel with your hand. So water is tangible. You can touch it. 13 is vacillate. And to vacillate, it's a verb. It means to waver, to go back and forth. So if you're kind of a fickle person or you're an indecisive person, you might vacillate between different options and have a hard time making up your mind. So vacillating just means to go back and forth, to waver, kind of change your mental position on something. 14 is saunter. It's a verb, and saunter means to walk at a leisurely pace. A synonym for saunter is to stroll. So someone who's out for an evening stroll, they're just they're sauntering. They're relaxed. Maybe they're looking around. They're soaking up their surroundings. They're not in a big hurry. It's a walk for fun. It's not a walk to get somewhere in a hurry. So if you're out at the beach with your friend or your family and you guys are just taking a nice stroll down the beach, enjoying the atmosphere and soaking up the beach and the waves and the sounds, you're probably just going to be sauntering. And the last word is compel. It's a verb, and to compel is to force or to drive forward, especially to a course of action. So if you are compelled to do something, you are motivated to do it. It's going to get done. And so I found this picture of a megaphone because I think if someone was yelling at me with a megaphone, I would be compelled to do what they were asking. In fact, when I was in high school and I was running cross country, my cross country coach would often not actually run with us, but instead yell with a megaphone, encouragement or sometimes criticism, like pick up the pace. And it definitely compelled us to go faster, to try harder, to push deeper.